Hello, everyone, and welcome to Arm's Innovation Coffee. I accidentally clicked that thing twice. I'm usually not the one that's behind the scenes clicking those intros, so to my defense there. Welcome once again to our weekly broadcast here at the Innovation Coffee Studio. A little big change from the Arm TV studio from a couple weeks ago. Now, I just want to let everyone know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry because we missed last week's episode, and then the week before that we were at Arm DevSummit. So this is a 2-week wait that you had to wait to get your innovation coffee fix. So cheers to everyone out there for waiting around and joining us today. Take my sip of coffee because I need it. Now, today's episode we have something really cool planned for you all. We're going to be doing an Arm DevSummit 2021 breakdown, and we are joined by 6 developers in the audience, 6 other people in the audience to join us here on the call and to talk about all the cool things that they enjoyed about DevSummit. We're going to break it down for you. And in fact, one of these 6 people is actually going to serve as a temporary or a guest co-host that you might recognize. So let's bring on our first guest and co-host for today, Brian Fuller, editor-in-chief at Arm. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Dude, it's been too long. What, 3 weeks?
I know, right? I like the hat. We're hat people today.
Yep, Avery Brewing, Denver,
Nice.
Colorado. So I was doing innovation beer, and I'm done. I'm out.
Isn't it like? Oh, I guess it's kind of happy hour around your area, right?
No, unfortunately, it's not even close. And I'm kidding about the beer, but give me 3 hours. Give me 3 hours. I'll be there.
Yeah, cool. So Brian, you're going to be joining us today, co-host. We have a few awesome guests that are going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about Arm DevSummit. But before we do that, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into bringing in all these guests.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry more years than I'm going to admit. And a lot of that was as a technical reporter and editor in the electronics trade press, primarily EE Times, which I ran in the early aughts as editor-in-chief. And then a few years ago, I moved to what we in journalism call the dark side, which is the corporate side, right? Because you had this big diaspora of editors leaving the business. So I was at Cadence Design Systems for a couple of years doing content there, and now I've been at Arm for 6 years. I'm editor-in-chief, which means I work on the content team for enterprise marketing.
Very nice, very cool. So today we're going to be talking about Arm DevSummit 2021. Now, you and I, we did Arm TV just a couple weeks ago. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience during Arm TV? I'll add to it, but I mean, like maybe for people who are watching who weren't familiar with it, what was Arm TV?
Sleep deprivation.
That's how I feel today. Yes.
No, it was a great program. Some of us internally have been sort of hectoring people for a long time to create a program that could serve as a complement to a live event. DevSummit, of course, was virtual again for a second year, but I think the team came up with a program and a script that really sort of brought out for a remote video audience the best of the event, coupled with other content targeted completely at developers. So sleep deprivation was a real thing, but it was an exciting program. I loved being on the stage with you and Allie. It was a fantastic experience. And, hopefully we'll be doing it again.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I have to admit. And sleep deprivation is true. I mean, I think it was like every day we'd wake up. We had to be at the studio at like 6 a.m., which means we had to wake up obviously much before that. And the night before we were scripting and rehearsing and practicing. And then we'd wake up that morning and then we'd go through. Even before the event started, we were doing rehearsal runs. So we spent like 2 days beforehand just running full day rehearsals. And then after that, then the live event would start. So we'd wake up early, rehearse all the night before, wake up early, do the 5-hour live event, and then we do another 3 to 5 hours of rehearsal for the next day. And so we did that for the whole entire week.
Yeah. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think it came off well. And, think about the technology that enabled us to have people in London working with us, in the Silicon Valley, and then people watching, whether it's on your laptop or on a phone or on a smartwatch or something. It's just, we couldn't have done this 10 years ago.
It was huge. It was awesome. And like huge effort by everyone. People don't realize like the director and the producer for these types of, productions are usually on site. And like Brian just said, we were on site with like 26 people, camera people all over the place. And we had our own producers and stuff on site, but the actual core team was in the UK. And so we had these earpieces in. There's like 4 different people yelling at us. The director was saying, go stand here now, walk here. While the producer was like, hey, you're doing a great job, keep going. And then we had a countdown. So there was a lady counting down nonstop. Ali will chime in on this a little more when we bring her in. But let's do that now. Let's bring our guests in. Let's welcome the Roundtable of DevSummit analysts. And we'll bring them all in order. So we have Sahej Sarup joining us from Linaro 96 boards. We have Ali Gonzalez joining us from SparkFun. iShot JR doing all sorts of really cool stuff in the maker world. He did a really cool piece for Hackster.io for Arm DevSummit. And we have David Tischler from Mini Nodes in Ballina. And we have Joe Rozek from Arm, another very own Arm person. So let's do a real quick roundtable here. Keep it short and sweet. Introductions, starting with you, Sahej, if you wouldn't mind.
Hello, I'm Sahej Sarup. I work at Linaro as an application engineer with the 96 boards project, and in my free time, I'm mostly a maker, tinker with stuff, mostly related to Arm, coincidentally.
Yeah, we were in the Works on Arm call yesterday, and I was asking him where his little sleeping nest is in his room. The little nest under the desk. Cool. Thank you, Sahej. David, you're up. David Tischler.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Tischler. I am a developer advocate at Ballina by day. So I ran a workshop we'll get into in a few minutes using Jets and Nanos at DevSummit. But in my spare time, I like to hack and tinker on lots and lots of Raspberry Pis, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. So you can certainly check that out over at Mini Nodes.
Cool, thanks, David. iShot JR, you're up.
Hi, I'm iShot JR. I covered DevSummit for Hackster. I wrote a big blog post about it. Attended a lot of workshops and events, and just generally am an extreme enthusiast in all these things. And as Ali said, I'm everywhere, it seems.
You are everywhere, aren't you? Thank you, Dave. Thank you, iShot JR. Ali, you're up.
Hi, yeah. So I was the fellow co-host at the Arm DevSummit. I'm an Arm innovator. I'm the services manager at SparkFun. I do some content for SparkFun as well, like these cool LED glasses, well, SparkFun and Hackster. And I'm a maker. I like making things. So yeah, that's me.
Very nice. Thank you. And yeah, as it was mentioned, Ali was also one of the co-hosts for Arm TV, which was awesome. All right, Joe, welcome.
Howdy, I'm Joe Rozek. I'm a developer relations manager here at Arm. I look after games and graphics in North America.
Excellent. All right, so now to the meat of it. We have a topic at hand, which is Arm DevSummit. Now, I want to treat this as a roundtable. There's a lot of us. I know we have a whole hour, but I have a feeling it's either going to speed by real quick or you all are going to talk too fast and we'll be done early. So we'll see. There's a lot of stuff to cover. I want to go one by one. If you were to highlight your favorite thing from Arm DevSummit. Now, a lot of this stuff, I think all of it is going to be available on demand very soon. If you were speaking to someone who wasn't able to attend DevSummit and everything is on demand, what's that one thing that you would highlight and say, hey, this is the one thing I think you should go try and watch once it's on demand? And I don't know, maybe Brian, you could start. While I turned my lights on, I forgot I didn't turn my lights on.
Well, I actually have a couple, but to be fair, I'll just focus on one. And I think at a Keynote level, The one thing that I thought was one of the most important was Mohammed Awad's keynote about 10xing IoT. It really, first of all, he's a very enthusiastic, energetic, fantastic presenter, which I always like. You know, when we do TV stuff like this, you respect that, and it's always good to see. But he hammered home these messages about how if we're going to scale IoT or 10x it, as he put it, we really have to make the developer's life a lot easier. Which is what we were trying to get across at events like Arm DevSummit. And we have Project Cassini at the Cortex A level to make development and integration a lot easier than it used to be, and now Project Centauri at the Cortex M level, along with System Ready, a series of certifications and standards that are just supposed to make development work a lot easier with ARM-based products. So that would be my top one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm poking around right now. I was able to share Mohammed Awad's keynote session link in the chat. So if you're in YouTube, you can see that link there. You can actually go register still for DevSummit. Like if you're not already registered, go register. You can go watch that keynote right now. So it's on demand, available for you, just like Brian pitched it right now. If you want to, if you're excited, if that made you excited, go watch it after this show. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good one. There was a lot of stuff covered in his keynote, especially with the total access stuff. I love that. Yep. Virtual hardware. I think that's really cool. All right, I'm going down. I'm going how I see people listed here on the thing. So Sahej, you're up. What's that one thing? And you can be biased if it's something like that pertains to something you did.
No, for me, Grant Likely's System Ready IR talk was the most interesting one. Lots of changes and improvements in that area, especially with U-boot, boot standardization, and it will more or less, it will make sure what direction 96 boards goes, influence that in a lot of ways. So I was listening to that closely. So yeah, I'm excited for it. Hopefully the days of custom boot images are behind us soon.
Yeah. So for those who are listening and might not know what you're talking about, could you explain a little bit with regards to these standards and what it means?
So yeah, the System Ready IR specification is specifically for IoT devices, embedded CPUs that aren't meant to be, in the server or desktop space. And it dictates the certain features that the U-boot bootloader has, which would enable you to not have a PI specific image or a 96 board specific image, like a high key specific image or a Dragon Board specific image. Instead, you would just be able to take any distro like you do on x86 and boot it. It's not as involved as the System Ready ES or SR, which are more of the server side of things. It's a bit more simpler. It still uses device trees, so a lot of embedded engineers are very comfortable with it. And in my opinion, it's very easy to implement once you have your drivers and everything upstreamed.
Great. That bought me just enough time to find the session and post it in the chat. Perfect. Sahaj, thank you so much. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, standards are everything in my opinion. And this is kind of the direction that, ARM is headed, right? When they announced the System Ready stuff last year, I think very recently, last year, or maybe the latter end of the year before that, as more and more companies start to address the standards at the earliest stage possible in development, then everything above it on the stack benefits, right? So that's great. And I think and Grant Likely, I love that guy. So I mean, he's just awesome, a wealth of knowledge. All right, David T, you're up. Mini-nodes.
Oh, hang on. As usual, I was on mute. Well, Brian actually stole mine already.
Oh, sorry, man.
So, but actually what I'll do is kind of continue on that same theme. I know there's a lot of other great stuff out there as well, but I can tell you from experience that scaling and trying to 10x and building out fleets of thousands of devices, because that's what we do at Molina, is actually really hard without those standards in place. So I'm kind of glad to hear Brian mention the keynote and Sahaj then talk about the actual specific implementations. And I'll have to go watch Grant's session because it is really, really difficult to scale hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of devices without some of those standards in place. So I have to go check that Grant session now.
Now, David, you're a bit of a unique guest on this stream today because I'm surprised you did like 3 sessions. You actually people were literally fighting to the death for a session at DevSummit, and you got 3 of them. So first question is, how'd you pull that off? And second can you tell us about your 3 sessions that you did?
Well, it's easy. I just sent the check. I sent the bribe to the right person. It's super easy to do if you know the right one. No, I'm teasing. Well, the thing about that is because I wear a lot of hats, I was fortunate enough to participate from a couple different angles. So you might remember me from such films as Mini Nodes, and Robert, you and I are currently undertaking a super cool project that will make community developer hardware available to folks. We can, maybe that was my favorite session. I don't know. But and we can talk about that in detail, if we've got time or whatever in a couple minutes. But then I was also able to deliver a workshop, a hands-on workshop, and SparkFun did an awesome job getting developer kits out into literally the world for folks to follow along as I helped them build their first edge AI device. And we used Molina for that. Basically built a container that did object detection and quantification. So counting of unique discrete objects that pass in front of the camera. We used Open Data Cam for that project. And it's a really cool open source project. Like I say, you just put your Jetson together, you hook up the camera, you place it, towards a street would be good, or, if it's, I don't know, maybe agricultural or whatever. But the point is then you can draw on the frame, on the canvas, a 2-dimensional or even a 3-dimensional segment that you want to track objects that pass through, and it counts them for you. It's pretty neat. And then finally, the third one, it was a background role, but supporting cast member nonetheless. The ARM team, in conjunction with Connect 5G, put together a really cool workshop on how to deploy Magma to a Raspberry Pi. Magma is an open source contributed by Facebook, if I remember correctly, 5G gateway application. It does require a little bit of extra hardware in that you need the radio as well. So you need the cellular gear and kit to go along with it. But the deployment of the Magma orchestrator and application stack itself can all be deployed, for prototyping purposes, but right onto a Raspberry Pi. And so we used a lot of the community developer hardware to achieve just that. So workshop attendees were able to deploy their own 5G gateways. Like, super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a success then, right? Because I wasn't able to follow any of this stuff being at Arm.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And that's a prime example that it worked. That means that the community hardware program is going to work too. Because we did, right? We set up these. Sorry, I got hot. We set up these racks, custom made racks, and then there were 30 boards that were provisioned out to the workshop attendees.
Yep, correct. 30 of them.
Right.
So yeah, that was awesome too.
Cool. So I shot JR there, Naughty. Did you attend that one?
I attended all of David's workshops. I attended the Balena one, which was great. Followed along. Was lucky enough to receive hardware so I could follow along. That was great. And I also attended the LTE one. And yeah, that was like something that was mind blowing. I just made my own LTE network in an hour.
Very nice.
And
very nice.
yeah, it was cool using the community developer hardware program. Obviously, I have Raspberry Pis and stuff like that, but it was great because you could just log into the cloud version with everything all set up that you need, and not have to worry about hardware at all.
Yeah, and you were logging into an actual device, not like a virtual version of it.
Yeah,
so,
no,
like,
it was an actual Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
Actual Raspberry Pi, pretty cool. So I want to make sure that we cover everyone, right?
Yep.
Like, obviously, I told you we're already 20 minutes in, and we haven't even gotten through this first question. So I shot JR. What's the highlight? What would you say? For you?
Well, I mean, I would have said David's, but I feel like we covered that already. So I'm going to choose some rarer items that I don't think anyone else would choose. So my favorite event was probably we did a companion bot meetup in the ARM Software Developers Discord with Alex Glow and OddJ. And that was the kind of like the last event on the third day. And that was a lot of fun. But it wasn't recorded. So I can't recommend that as something for people to go and watch. So the thing that I will recommend to go and watch was, I don't know what the name of these were, but there was these historical ARM videos that were just playing sort of when ARM TV wasn't on. And I love those because I might not sound like it, but I'm actually from England originally. And my first computer was a BBC Micro, which is like the genesis of ARM. And I actually remember as a child going to see the first ARM processor demonstrated. Well, it was the second ARM processor, I think. But I remember going to a computer show with my dad when I was little. And there was this machine, the Archimedes. And it was like so unlike anything else. All the 8-bit computers, and this was like the next generation, and it had such amazing graphics and such amazing everything, and that was the first sort of commercial ARM device.
I think that was one of my favorite things too. Brian, you put that together, right? Like, I mean, you and Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the computer, but the episode, and it actually, I have to say, I'm a little biased about it. Like, I love history in general. But the electronics industry is more about the future than it is about the past, right? We don't often dwell on the past, but I thought in that episode, the whole story arc of ARM and the technology and the business model are special. They're really special. And obviously, I'm a little biased. I work for ARM, but it's an amazing story, and the fact that it's inspired so many people. From you to our CEO to get involved in technology sort of bears witness to it.
So that was actually it kind of ties into some other things. Like one of the overall feelings I had about this year was it was more sort of down to earth than previous events. And so when Simon opened with like, ARM started out in a turkey shed or something like that, like I thought that was brilliant. And then it made everything really like approachable and like felt like part of a big thing that you could be part of, as opposed to some like flashy, amazing thing that you just have to like view from a distance. So I didn't know you were involved with them making that video. I wasn't trying to suck up or anything, but I don't know if you can see, but I've got like an Amiga up here and an SGI somewhere and Commodores and Tandys and HPs all over the place. So I'm very into retro computing, and so I really enjoyed that stuff.
He's patting the tulip. What is it, Brian?
Gilding the lily.
Brian was telling us all these old sayings.
A lot of mileage out of that story, Robert. A lot of
So yeah, that's good. Cool. All right, Aisha JR, thank you so much. I think that's a really good one. In fact, unless you mentioned it, as soon as you mentioned this whole history, the 30-year thing. Now that you mention it, I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of it too. Like it wouldn't have popped up unless you said it though. All right, Ali, you're up. The one and only co-host of ARM TV. Ali, what was your favorite thing? And I know you were stuck with us, with this whole busy work. But
I was. I had to learn a lot about gilding the lily many times. Yeah. I mean, there were so many things that obviously I didn't get to watch anything live because I was there in the studio having people yell at me in my ear the whole time. I'm working on barely any sleep. Fun but intense. But since then, I've been watching the Arduino and Raspberry Pi like collaboration. Like basically, Massimo Banzi and Eben Upton got on what was it, like a Dev Connect one session?
No,
I think?
it was an actual tech session. It was on day 2, so it's on October 20th.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up right now, but yeah.
Yeah, so it was really great. I
Pi
haven't
session.
gone through the whole thing, but it's really cool seeing these two like titans of like the dev board industry who normally, I mean, one is like Cortex-A processors that run an OS. The other one is Cortex-M's microcontrollers, low power. So they are pretty different markets. And to maybe the uneducated, like they would think that they're more so competitors when they're really like in different places. But now with Raspberry Pi coming out with the RP2040, they've been able to collaborate like really for the first time, like Arduino coming out with boards with a Raspberry Pi like chip on them. So far it's been really cool. I definitely think people should check it out. Besides that, maybe check out some of the ARM TV sessions, see our witty humor throughout the days.
I don't even know. I don't know how to access ARM TV. If you can even go rewatch it anywhere.
There's
Yeah,
one thing on YouTube, and then I've been checking like every day to see if anybody uploads the rest. So
yeah, I'm sure it's recorded somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully
Cool.
somewhere. And those ARM history ones are also really good. I mean, I'm a youngling Gen Z person, so I wasn't around during all of these things, so it was cool to hear about the history.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Ali, so much. Joe, last but not least here, we finally made it around to you 30 minutes later. Here you are. What was your favorite thing?
My favorite, other than the announcement of the Mali Championship winner, obviously, would be the high performance computing that's earth friendly from Brett Bibby over at Unity. I'm a little biased that I like gaming for obvious reasons. But for me, it's always really awesome to kind of hear that this is a point that people are paying attention to in the gaming industry. When you're working on games, and if you've done it in the past, like every little bit of power that you can kind of squeeze out of every device you have is super duper important. So the work we're doing with Unity and with the technology that they're developing on device with dots, all the way up to servers and everything is really awesome to kind of hear how we're starting to reduce power consumption and that we're being very conscious about this type of stuff.
Yeah, I think in the studio when we were watching that keynote, whenever a keynote would come up, we'd go on this little break. We thought it was very bold of Brett to wear all white. He was wearing white pants, white hoodie. We were just like, man, that guy wants a cup of coffee. He's got to be real careful. And then I think the question was asked whether like that's just kind of, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like it was a cool outfit, right? Like I'd sport that. Whether or not like that's just kind of his day-to-day kind of outfit. Like he just wears that every day. But pretty cool. Yeah, definitely good. I don't know, Brian, do you want to take us through the second roundtable?
Yeah, what's our second question? Is the second question the one thing that you would go back if you haven't seen and focus on in the on-demand stuff?
Yeah, I think the second roundtable is more focused on the things that everyone did, right? So like, I mean, I know only some of you went to a workshop, only some of you went to some sessions, only some of you participated in the Dev Connect. Like, so maybe like kind of focusing in and telling us about your experience for each one of these things, and maybe each person can touch on one of those things.
Yeah, you've all talked a little bit about some of the ways you interacted. What were some of the highlights there, and what would you like to go back and sort of burrow in on a little bit more? Because that content's going to be there for another month or two, I think.
Yeah, and then some of it will go to YouTube, but yeah.
Let's do it in the same rotation and start with Sahej.
I still have to watch David W's presentation. That's something on my watch list that has been there for a while. And yeah, I see some other ones. I haven't looked at through all the agenda. So they did this thing of having the agenda about with the time zones, and that sort of hit quite a lot of the things. Um, I caught most of the sessions I could, but definitely David W's one is still pending because I just want to sit and watch when I'm kind of free and not doing anything else, and that hasn't been the case. So I'm on my vacation till Monday, so I'm sure I'll get some time.
Oh,
You on vacation right now?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's David W. He made a car and it's fully ARM branded. And I think that he was talking about that, right? Because it has the NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Does it have the AGX on there? The Xavier AGX?
No, I think it has the Jetson. I think
Okay.
he said the AGX fits, but it's a tight fit. I'm sure he'll come in something about it on the chat.
Yeah. Cool.
David, how about you? What piques your
Well-
interest when you have some time?
Well, two things. I have to figure out if the platform we used for Dev Connect, I don't know that those are recorded or will be placed on YouTube because those were live interactions. And that was actually really neat. The talking point there is that we used this little metaverse type thing where you had an avatar, a face of your camera, and you were live, but you were in this like virtual room, this virtual setting, and you could move around and get near people. And when you walked up to people and you were near them, you could interact and hear them and see them. But if you kind of walked away a little bit, you no longer heard them, and you would, so that was actually really neat. And it kind of brought a good feel to a virtual event. You could interact with people. It was kind of a chit chat. Some of the sessions were interactive that way then, because instead of just a presentation, watching a keynote or something like that, you were right there with the speaker and you could ask questions, and it was just nice, like water cooler or hallway track style of conversations that were occurring. And that's hard to replicate, physical to virtual. So that was probably my favorite experience. I'm thinking of Mary's AI ecosystem session, for one, was held in there. Yeah. So it was great to be able to catch up with her. I wouldn't have otherwise gotten an opportunity to catch up with her, right? Like literally just engage and talk and interact otherwise, if she had filmed a typical, presentation style. So I think that was probably my favorite aspect of it, but I'm not sure that that's something that can go back and be reviewed and watched on YouTube. I don't know if those are uploaded or not.
I'm hoping they recorded those. I'm really hoping they recorded those.
Yeah, I don't know. Because there was great material.
Yeah, that was obviously one of the challenges when COVID hit and live events got shut down. Is how are you going to replicate the human interaction, the networking that's so valuable to those things? But that technology was pretty cool, and it sounds like you got a lot out of it.
Yeah, it was real nice to have it. I know there's a few platforms out there that can do it. I don't know which one specifically you had chosen, but whichever one it was, it worked well. So the other thing, though, I definitely need to catch up on David W's session on the automotive as well, because I actually just last night, and this literal second, I'm hacking on Donkey Car, and I have a running virtualized simulator. So I need to, it's just top of mind. Need to go get that going.
Very nice.
Yeah.
JR, how about you? You're next up.
Sure. Yeah, I thought the Dev Connect was really good. I was also at Mary's session, and I really liked how the closer you are to someone, the better you can hear them. So you could actually like move out of earshot, which was very confusing at first until you realize what was going on, and then get closer to hear what's going on in the kind of conversation cluster. So that was cool. Also, the Discord server I thought was awesome. It helped kind of keep people connected. Like me and David were chatting in there a lot during the event, which, again, was like that. Usually at a real event, you'd bump into each other and be, hey, I haven't seen you since last year, and blah, blah, blah. And so the Discord was a good place to catch up and share some memes and figure out some problems with some of the sessions trying to get the Zoom password and stuff like that. Not that that's something that we can reproduce after the fact, but the Discord is still there for everyone to enjoy. But on the day, I was just like workshop mania. I did all of David's workshops. I did the Edge Impulse Arduino Pro workshop. I did the Canonical micro clouds workshop, which was really cool.
Nice.
And what else? The 4G one, or the LTE one, sorry, and something else. Can't remember what it was. I did just continual workshops, and then so I didn't get much of a chance to watch the tech sessions. Sometimes I had them like I was doing both at the same time, but you couldn't really concentrate because the workshops were mostly pretty intense, and you were just typing stuff in all the time trying to keep up. So I think the main thing I probably will do next, honestly, is kind of continue some of the workshops. In David's one, we set this up as like an arbitrary example, but there's like, so far that you can go from there. And same with the Arduino ones, we did a certain type of object detection, but it was really just scraping the surface. And the Canonical one, we set up a cloud, but we didn't, put much on it. So it's, continuing, I've got like extensive notes that I took during those things, and like all the things I want to do now that I know how to do those things is what I'm going to be doing next, I think.
So real quick to reference the chat that you all are talking about, that proximity chat, it's called spatial chat. So if anyone's watching, that's what the program was.
That's cool.
Yeah, spatial chat, pretty cool feature.
Yeah, very cool. Ali G, you had the same problem that Robert and I had, which was we're in the studio, and when we're not in front of the camera, we're preparing. And I just got the distinct impression that I was missing the party, right? There's a lot of stuff going out there that we just didn't have the time to look at. What are you diving back into?
Totally. And I mean, what I was able to sneak in like during our lunch break one of the days was actually going on the Dev Connect on the spatial chat to talk to people. I mean, like piggybacking on what David said, it's such an important part of the whole conference experience that we miss out on when we're not there physically. So I went into like the Women in Tech one just for like 10 minutes because, as you know, we didn't have much time. And it was really good, just talking to different people there. It wasn't even all women. It was just like people having interesting discussions of how to like help women in technology. There was one guy who was like a university professor trying to get more women engineering students and having like a really honest and productive discussion. So it was great. And I mean, I don't even know if that would be the type of chat that you'd be able to have in person. You have one-on-ones with people, but it was like 5 of us talking about this just random subject. So I'd say that was my favorite thing that I was actually able to attend.
That's awesome. Mr. Rozek, how about you?
My favorite would have to be the boosting graphics performance on Mali made easier. This talk was technical session was hosted by Pete Harris. He's the technical product director of Arm Mobile Studio. Pete's worked on Mali for well over a decade since I even started working in tech. And anytime that he can just like walk you through anything with graphics, anything with tools, he is really it's like watching a composer. It's just so flawless, so quick. It's really kind of awesome to just kind of watch and experience and get to some of the insights that he can understand just from hardware, whereas I tend to look like coming from a software down perspective, trying to figure out what's going on.
Awesome.
So let me throw this out because we're on this subject here. Anytime we do a big event like this, it's an evolution from an earlier iteration of it. Where do you think, what would you like to see in the next Arm Dev Summit that would make the experience even more valuable?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, start with you, Sahej. kick it to us. What would make your developer and let's create an imaginary scenario, right? Let's assume it's a hybrid event. Okay? We're hoping that in 2022 people are back to traveling, people are feeling comfortable, but we still want to keep a virtual aspect. So what would be something that maybe was lacking this Dev Summit that you would like to see next Dev Summit, or something that we could just add?
I think from the content perspective, I don't have any issues. Was the website itself was sort of not fit for all screen types. So like a lot of people were having issues on mobile. I was having issue on larger displays where it was just covering like a part of the display. I would really love to have scrolled through the entire timeline, and just like the availability of all the timelines at all the point. Like I'm not awake, the same time other folks are in my area, but also sometimes I just switch. So it just to wake up, just go there and see that no live session is there is not a thing. I'll have to go and change the time zone and all of that stuff. So even if that was sort of made more up in on the main page, so that you can just click the time zone and select the um, current timeline, that would have been fine. So just some more polishing on that area would have been great. um, Apart from that, it just seems that they really wanted to host it on their website. If they were simultaneously casting it on YouTube, that would have been great, because I couldn't sit on my bed, have it on my and then cast it onto my TV. That was one thing I missed.
Yeah. So I want to add to that, and that's a really good point, by the way,
Yeah.
Sahesh. But I want to add that I really wish that the website had a one search function. So like the sessions were scattered all over the place. You had the tech hub, you had the sessions area, you had the agenda, and you couldn't go to one search bar to find everything. Let alone, even when you went to like the sessions tab, like if you wanted to search for a speaker, like on the filter and search, like you could type in a company name like Suze. Like there are people from Suze giving a talk. If I type Suze in, nothing comes up. So it's like, I mean, what if I'm working for Suze? What if I'm that speaker? Like, how do I go find my session? You know what I mean? So I think that the website does definitely need some polishing. So I resonate with you on that one. And I these notes are being taken and pushed onto the events team, so that we can, of course, make this experience better each year.
If I may add, I did love the ARM TV concept.
Yeah, I'm hoping
It was, I think, so. So here's the thing, why? Because it's been sort of monotonous with or any of the conferences that I've attended, like this year and the past. Like earlier, it was fine, all right, it's an online conference. I can sit at the comfort of my home and watch it. But then it just starts being more of a slideshow thing where you're just sitting there. You're not participating as a community, as an audience. But I think the ARM TV was a good alternative to it, where there was like an ongoing commentary, ongoing, like a TV show basically, on the entire show. So I enjoyed that.
What I really like to see it in like the next one with regards to ARM TV is like a central ARM TV track. Okay, so like ARM TV is going nonstop, and then Brian and I, like maybe Mohammed's keynote comes up, just using for example this year's content. So like we're talking, we're doing something, and then we're like, oh hey, Mohammed's keynote's about to start. Let's go check it out. So then we go off onto this parallel, and then Brian and I are sitting there watching like the first 3 to 5 minutes of Mohammed's keynote, and then a little pop-up comes up and says, would you like to continue watching Mohammed's keynote? Sure. Boom. You click it. Now you're watching Mohammed's keynote. But then Brian and I go back to ARM TV.
Yeah.
And then, oh, hey, a session from so-and-so is doing this. Boom. So we go over to this session. We watch a couple minutes. Would you like to keep watching this? Boom. You click. Now you're watching that. But then the ARM TV thing keeps going. And so we kind of take you on this journey, and you can hop off. You can hop off the train whenever you want, hop back on the train whenever you want. But we're just going in all these stops. And then on top of that, I'd also like to see like more interactions, like, pulling Twitter comments and reading them out loud, and, like having a little Twitter feed on the bottom corner, like all sorts of cool things, and maybe even bringing in phone guests, so I don't know. there's so much potential with it. But yeah, thank you.
That's what I was gonna say, Robert. Like, bring in like live people. Like, if it's a hybrid event, like bring people on stage, like from the conference, and then like bring in Twitter people, phone guests, whatever, to make it more of like an interactive experience.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful, right? At the same time, like,
No,
just like
totally.
with a radio show, you know, you get that
Yeah.
one person that gets vetted and gets through the vetting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have like a big red button to like take them off. Like, have a like 10-second delay between it being live.
Yeah. Cool, David, you're up. David T. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of nitpicking on the website. It was not a super good experience on the finding the content and the time zones and like the way in which the content was presented. But I think the biggest struggle I had was the use of 3 different platforms, almost 4 platforms really, because DevConnect was in the spatial chat. My workshops were delivered by Zoom, but one of the Zooms I was a presenter, so I was the co-host. Another one I was an attendee. That was a different URL. And then trying to think what else there was. So the point was like, I had to keep figuring out where I was supposed to be and context switching because I was literally platform switching. And so that was a bit of a struggle. I kept pinging iShotJR like, hey, where is this one? Hold on a minute. Wait, what's the password to that one? Like I could,
You're in a unique situation though, because you had like 3 different sessions.
It's totally fair, totally valid. But even the DevConnect, those were open sessions where anyone, bare minimum, those folks, regular attendees. That's not, not to say that not everyone isn't, a highly valued attendee. Point being though, is that they still had to go at a bare minimum of 2 platforms then. So it was kind of odd going back and forth and hopping all around. I don't know. I don't have a solution. So what am I going to do? Sit here and complain? I don't have an answer for you. So, but it was a challenge.
Even with the website, right? Like people spent a lot of time. There was a lot of effort put into building that from the ground up, right?
Yeah.
You talked about going in and I go in and nitpick this search function. It's not as easy as just saying like, oh, hey, let's fix this search. It's like, no, you got to like go all the way down to all the metadata and tag all this stuff properly. Yeah. It's not just something like you can hit a button and fix it. Real quick, I want to bring on the comment from the chats from David W. He was supposed to be joining us on the call today, but was having internet issues. Because I think for recorded sessions like mine, having an ARM staff member, producer, audience person be on a Zoom call with you makes the recording experience very enjoyable. And then he adds, Alon from ARM, she's awesome, by the way. Alon, she put a lot into this event. Did that with me, and we knocked it out super quickly, and it was really quite fun. I had been totally stressing about it. So yes, I will say that the ARM events team, like, they go above and beyond when it comes to this event, and they really pull out all the stops. They're working hard like months beforehand to deliver this, and then throughout the event, I don't even know if they sleep. So,
and I suspect our behind-the-scenes Buddha Carl Jung is listening in and furiously taking notes. So optimization will come.
Yeah.
And props to Brissa also for helping us on site.
Wow. She kept us all sane.
Mm-hmm.
And caffeinated, I hope.
Oh, we had a runner for coffee.
Yeah, definitely. There's a team effort. People. There's Carl waving. It's like people like, oh, ARM TV was awesome. You did such a great job. I'm like, yeah, me and like 60 other people. It wasn't just me at all. Carl, in fact, this guy right here who's waving, he was like the linchpin. He was the glue that held everything together. Cool. Let's polish this off. We have about 10 minutes left. So iShotJR, we want this feedback. I think it's really good to get this. We can forward this to the events team, getting the feedback in.
Sure. So this is not a criticism of this event. I was very lucky. I was an interactive participant in all those workshops. I got to be, David was saying about the Zoom. There was actually like 2 Zooms, really. There was like the real Zoom for people who were in it. And then there was like just the one-way watching Zoom. And there was only like one thing where I was in that scenario. I was really lucky. I was participating and inside the thing. So in that, LTE network, I was asking David questions like, hey, my thing's not working. What's happening and stuff like that. And, I don't think other participants necessarily had that same kind of access. And so just more interactivity would be awesome. There were, the thing that I just described was perfect, but not everybody had that experience. And I know some of the sessions were that, you're just watching someone on the screen, and what they had was you can type questions at the bottom. And so I would type in a little thing, and I'm like, where did it go? Did anyone even see it? I don't know. And then, Massimo Banzi would say, oh, and we've got a great question here. And oh, hey, that's my question. But it's not quite the same as the interactivity of DevConnect or of Real Zoom. And so it would be cool to make those more interactive. And I don't have the solution to this one, but speaking of Massimo Banzi, like at the Arm AIoT Dev Summit, like I almost missed my plane because I was hanging out with him talking about smartwatches and stuff for like an hour after the event. And like, I just had to go because like my plane was taking off. And so I don't know how we could kind of recreate those again. And I was also thinking like, we had the pub quiz and things like this year, but like, at that event, we went out for Robert's birthday and got sushi and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, the pub quiz was a start, but like, what else could we do for more social after party engagement, perhaps? And I don't have the solution. I just have the suggestion.
I mean, one of the things we tried doing this year, and it was a total trial run, was that meetup on Discord, right?
Yeah.
Now, addressing like that interactive, engaging experience, like for instance, like if you're at a real conference, right, and you put a mic up in the hallway, right, or in the walkway, and it's like, all right, people, line up in this microphone and ask our guests some questions. You actually get in line, you go up to the microphone, excuse me, sir, blah, 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 and then they answer, right? So something similar to this is kind of like the Twitter voices or whatever thing, the Twitter stage or the Discord stage, where, like even I've gone into these Twitter spaces. There you go. You go to like the Twitter space or whatever, and there's like 500 people in there, and you raise your hand. The main people are all enabled to talk. You're just a listener. You raise your hand, and if they choose on you, you come in, and you actually get to ask the question. You verbally ask it, and then they answer your question. You say thank you, and then they put you back as a listener. This is even more engaging than typing your question in, and these are things I think that platforms can integrate this in. So I think that would be a great first step with regards to virtual.
Yeah, the other thing about typing it is, a lot of times people would type in a question and the reader would be like, I don't know what that means because there's like a piece of context missing or something. And so that question's just gone now. There's no way to get it back. Whereas you can do interactive, like, did you mean this or this or, yeah.
Yeah. So definitely can see that.
Right, and this type of platform is completely engaging for that, right? If you're doing it virtually, I don't know how it would scale with 50 people or whatever, but this is awesome.
Yeah, we used to with Sahej, we did open hours, 96 Sports open hours, where we had a Zoom call and we would bring everyone in, so everyone would be able to join. We ended up with like 20 or 30 people a week on that thing. Everyone would join. Most people just sit there and just listen. But a lot of people would just chime in and ask questions and talk, right? It was still a show like this is. We're the speakers, we're talking at you, but I mean, anyone could speak up and ask a question whenever they wanted. StreamYard, unfortunately, I think only allows 10 people max. I think it's something like that. But yeah. All right, let's polish this one off. We have 5 minutes left. We have Ali and Joe left. So Ali, any feedback?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I mean, +1 to what Sahaj and David said about, I Shot JR said about just like having that interactive aspect of bringing people in, super important, especially in a virtual conference. What David Tischler said about the website improvements. I mean, like, you could use it, but it could have been more polished. It could have been easier to use, especially like going on multiple devices. Always having that pop-up show up was a little annoying.
Yeah.
Besides that, things, I mean, ARM TV, I think, was a really big hit. I mean, everybody that I spoke to that watched it loved ARM TV. So expanding that in some way, maybe even having like, if next year's conference is virtual, maybe having like little in-person like meetups, like one in Austin, one in the Bay Area, one in Cambridge, like just epicenters where there would be a lot of people watching it, where one day after work they could go to it for a couple hours, and that would be the in-person portion.
You know, that would be pretty cool, actually, having like these remote meetups and then tapping into these meetups, like having a camera and a screen so that you can actually tap in and see like, hey, let's say hi to all the folks in Austin who are joining us virtually or remotely from Austin, and there's like a crew of people all drinking beers and like, you know, hey, now let's go to Japan and see all the folks from Japan watch it. That would be pretty fun. And then we could sponsor beer and appetizers, you know?
Yeah,
like
do one in Miami.
One in Miami, yeah. Cool. Sorry, anything else, Ali? I didn't.
No. I'll let Joe go. He has 2 minutes.
All right, Joe, you get to finish this off.
Generally, I have to kind of agree with almost everyone. Website improvements would have been great. I remember trying to find, I forgot the time that I was going to be on the segment with you guys. I was like, oh, I wonder when this is going to be. And I couldn't find it very easily. Thank the Lord the producers sent me an email being like, please be here at this time. Definitely agree with like a little bit more interactivity would be awesome. My favorite thing from all of our conferences has been able to get to meet people. That's actually where I got to meet Robert. Was actually at one of our conferences when he had just started here at ARM. So those interactions are always super duper valuable and can build a really awesome community.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I want to say the hallway track is a huge aspect of conferences, but even more than the hallway track. And I try to explain this to like my wife and friends, right? You know, when you go to a conference, you may go there for this conference, this 3-day event that starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m. Okay. But just because the event ends at 3 p.m., that doesn't mean that you're done working. Like, just because you're having a beer after this, that doesn't mean you're done working. Like, you're freaking working from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Like, you know, you might be having beers and having fun, but you're not talking about work stuff. Like, you're networking and building relationships and literally trying to push your products, and you're nonstop working. And so that's the one thing I feel like, you know, Ali talked about these meetups. It's huge, right? Like we can isolate these two. There's the networking in the hallway track, and then there's the post-event networking. I feel we had a nice addition with the Dev Connect aspect. We added Dev Connect. There was an attempt to tackle this hallway track in the virtual space, but we did not have a post-event, and that's something that I think is missing. And I don't have a solution for it. We tried with that one meetup, with the companion bots meetup, but you know, how can you mimic a post-event type thing? And that's tough, right? Like, I can't just say like, hey, I shot JR, let's go grab a beer and talk about companion bots after the event's over, you know? Can't do that. So yeah.
Deliver beer to everybody's home so we can have a virtual beer.
Yeah.
Using companion bots. Have robots deliver them.
Yes.
Drones.
Powered by ARM.
Is that my door? It's just a companion bot. He'll wait. But yeah. Okay, cool. So it is the top of the hour. This is the end. Any last words from anyone? Shameless plugs. Sending people to your website. Sahaj, you want to send people to 96boards.org?
Yeah, sure. Go to 96boards.org. See what we're up to.
Brian, any last words from you?
It was a blast working with you two, and in this particular show right here, it's just awesome for a guy who came into the industry at 1 micron when FPGAs, big, fat, expensive FPGAs were the way to prototype something. and now you can develop like that on any number of boards. It's to see that evolution has been amazing.
Yes. All right. Well, I think this concludes it. Brian, thank you so much for joining as our guest co-host today. Honestly, if you ever want to join again and help me co-host this, you're always welcome.
Say the word, it's been a blast.
Okay. Alessandro Grande used to be the co-host here, and I kind of missed having a second person around. So anytime.
He's great. He's great.
Sahej, thank you so much. David, iShot JR, Ali, Joe, you're all amazing. Thank you for sharing your Dev Summit experiences. We're going to close this out. Everyone, again, we join you live every single Thursday at 5 p.m. UTC, unchanging. We're here every Thursday. Next week, we'll see you here. Don't forget to like the video. There's a little thumbs up button at the bottom of the video. Hit that like button. We really appreciate that. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the ARM Software Developers YouTube channel. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, Robert.
Bye.